Good evening, everybody. This is Mike Stubblefield, and we are here again with another edition of Bluegrass Sports Guys. I'm joined tonight by David Henley, and we're going to talk a little bit about Kentucky's game last night against Colgate. We're going to talk about Bill Belichick and him going to North Carolina and coaching in the college ranks. And then we'll talk a little bit about the Kentucky game coming up this Saturday, which is the big one against Louisville. And then I do have a little bit something to say about the guy riding his mule around Murray, Kentucky over this past week. So I dove into that a little bit. Rob brought it up last time we were on, and I didn't really have time to unpack it at that time. Take a look at it, but I have since then. So Kentucky last night, their game against Colgate, I thought it was kind of the typical kind of trap game, if you want to call it a trap game. You know, they're coming off a big win, and it's sandwiched in between Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They came out and got up 17-0. And then, I don't know, it looks like they just kind of took the foot off the gas. And Colgate's a lot better than what their record indicates. Their record, says they're 2-8. But I watched them last night. I think they're better than that. There was one point where they could have drop kicked a ball into the basket. But not a whole lot to unpack. The game was what it was. Kentucky, pulled away, hit some shots down late. Travis Perry, Colin Chandler, Trent Noah got minutes, and so I didn't know. Did you watch it at all, Dave?
Yeah. I thought the one thing is whenever, just on my experience and even teams that we had, if you're playing a team you're supposed to beat, but they're still good enough to beat you if things go their way, if they get a break or two and they jumped up, what was it, 17? I don't know. And, when you're upset, what was it, 17-0?
17-0.
Yeah. And at that point, if you're a player, you're like, we got this. Now I can take a quick shot. Or maybe if I get beat on defense and give up a bucket, well, it's just one bucket. And then we're so much better than them, we just turn it on. And, boy, it's really hard when you get up like that and let the other team back in it to kind of get that momentum going. But it was, a 2-minute stretch, a minute and a half where they hit 4 threes in a row. And, that was it. 4 shots, bang, 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 and the game was pretty much over. I think Noah might have hit one of those.
He did.
So it was good. That's really hard when you get up on a team you're better than, and they come back and actually they took the lead, didn't they?
They did.
Colgate took the lead. That's really hard to go from that high to a low to kind of get back on an even keel, so to speak. But they're just so much better, so much quicker than Colgate.
Yeah.
So they beat them by 20, I don't remember the exact margin, but
I think it beat them. I think it was 79-71.
Well, they had them down 20, didn't they? It's a blowout.
Yeah, I'm going to turn my camera off just a second here. Make an adjustment. Oh. However, I'll say this. And, Travis Perry got some minutes. And we were texting back and forth. And Rob, who wasn't able to be on tonight, he made a great point that because he put Travis Perry and Colin Chandler in there together. And it's kind of when everything kind of went south and Colgate kind of got back in the game. So if he's going to experiment, I do and collect his data points, as he calls them, probably needs to be a little bit more selective and not have those guys in there at the same time for a prolonged amount of time.
Right.
But it was what it was. They got out of there. It's finals week victory, and their own to Louisville, which they've beaten Louisville. I think what have they beaten them?
7 in a row.
Well, the last year Louisville beat them was Chris Mack's. I think it might have been his first year. Maybe it's
Was that when he
maybe
made the video?
yeah, yeah. But they haven't beaten Kentucky since. And here's what I think will happen Saturday. I think Louisville's going to come out and they're going to scrap because they're riddled with injuries.
Right.
And the one thing that does worry me is they got Chucky Hepburn at the point guard, who is an absolute menace defensively.
He's good.
Yeah, he's really good and just gets after you and stays after you. And Louisville as a team, they don't shoot the ball well, but they scrap and they play hard. Got a call coming in here. All right, you still good? All right.
Yeah.
They're scrappy. They play hard, and Kentucky's. They might make it a rock fight, but I think Kentucky's going to have too many weapons. I think eventually Kentucky's going to end up making too many shots, and I think Kentucky will end up winning by double figures and move on. So, which brings me to my next point was that's always my favorite game of the year. It's traditionally it's always on Saturday, and it's the one game of the year where I will listen to the pregame show from start to finish, and then watch the game. And it's just kind of I don't know, being from Kentucky, it's the Derby, and it's the Kentucky Louisville basketball game. But I got a pretty cool story. I got a funny story, really. Back in 1990, well, it would have been 1995. It was the '96 Kentucky team.
Mm-hmm.
My dad got tickets from a buddy of his. His buddy was a state representative, and they had tickets to every game, lower level seats. And my dad didn't want to go. He didn't care anything about driving to Lexington on a Saturday morning. So I got my buddy. And I picked him up. He worked third shift at Kroger. He was a stock boy at Kroger. And I picked him up in that Kroger parking lot there in Murray. And he was brushing his teeth out next to his car. And he was changing his shirt from his Kroger shirt to a Kentucky shirt or whatever. And we drove to Lexington, and it's about Litchfield. It started snowing hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a blinding snowstorm. And I white knuckled it all the way to Lexington. We watched the game. By the time we got back, it was time for him to start his shift at work again. So I picked him up that morning. We went to the game. We came back. I dropped him off, and he went back to work. And all in the same time. It was kind of a funny story, but
Got a brush in the teeth in the parking lot. I like that.
yeah, I pulled up and he was like getting ready and all that, but it was a good time. And that was the '96 Kentucky team, but that Louisville team had DeJuan Wheat, they had Alvin Sims, Tick Rogers, Samaki Walker. And they were good, man. They were real good. That was probably the last real good team that Denny Crum had. Was that team. And of course, Alvin Sims was from Paris, and Tick Rogers was from Hart County.
Hart County.
Yeah. What about you? What are some of your good Louisville, UK memories, if you have any?
I would say what was it? 88 Mid-East Regional in Knoxville. It was an overtime game. I think Kentucky led most of the way, and then they tied it up. And they just destroyed Kentucky in the overtime. I think they beat them by maybe 12, 80 to 68, something like that. But it was in Knoxville, Stokely. That's the one that I remember most. I guess the one was it Patrick Sparks? Didn't he hit a shot to send it over? Was that the Louisville game?
So Patrick Sparks, that was the game. It was in Freedom Hall.
Mm-hmm.
He got the ball in the corner. He pump faked, and then he got fouled.
Yeah.
And then they got to looking at the video, and as he was coming down, and the guy was coming down on him, he shuffled his feet. But anyway, they didn't call it. They called the foul. He went to the free throw line and made all 3 of his free throws. And but yeah, that was a good one. I'll always remember Rex Chapman's first game.
Yeah, he went off.
He went off, man. He made himself look like he was an absolute pro that game.
That was a game in the press conference. Eddie Sutton put his arm around him and said, "This is my son."
Yeah. Rex, and I've heard Rex Chapman tell this story on this podcast before. It was that game. It was the night before. I think he had a female up in his room or something, and he got caught. Of course, that's against team rules. But then it all of a sudden wasn't against team rules, and they just made him run the Rupp Arena steps a bunch of times on the way back. So yeah, that's a funny story that he likes to tell. I've heard it. But yeah, the Kentucky Louisville game is always a good one. I think as far as a rivalry goes, it's Duke, North Carolina, that gets all the publicity. But the thing that people don't realize is Kentucky and Louisville only play one time a year.
Yeah.
Duke, North Carolina play they play twice a year. So I think it makes it a little bit more special.
I think nationwide, I guess people get excited about Duke, Carolina. I mean, you don't really hear that about Kentucky, Louisville. When I was in Pittsburgh, you'd hear people talk about Carolina, Duke, Carolina game, but you never really hear anybody, Kentucky and Louisville play.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would even argue that back when Kentucky played Indiana, that was probably a bigger,
no doubt,
from a national scene. And
yeah, that was a big game.
Yeah, because they always played for a while they played either at the Hoosier Dome or they played in Freedom Hall. Then they went to playing on each other's home courts.
Back in the 70s, they played home and home.
Yeah. Yeah. And towards the end of the series, it was home and home because, of course, you had
right.
the Christian Watford shot and all that. But hopefully they'll bring that and renew that series. That was a good one.
I saw something. It's been a while ago that there's talk of Kentucky and Indiana playing again on campus.
Yeah. Well, I hope they do. They've got, I guess it comes down to money.
Yeah.
And getting all that worked out. But I did want to talk about, do you watch the NBA at all much anymore?
Not really. It hurts my eyes. I swear. I turned on the other night and I was flipping through the channels and I can't remember who was playing, but the court was red and I had to turn it. That hurt my eyes. Like those Houston Texans all red uniforms.
I think it was last night. It might have been the night before, but that's the Houston Rockets home floor. And I think they might have done that for the NBA Cup or whatever it is that they call that. But yeah, it's I don't watch it that much anymore.
No, neither.
I don't know. I guess I'm sounding old and too old fashioned, but on one hand I like more freedom and more movement and scoring, but I think it's gone to another level. I know that's how basketball was probably supposed to have been played, meant to be played, free flowing. Offense has no restriction on movement. But man, these games, 135 to 120, 140 to 130. These scores are to me, it's a little ridiculous.
Yeah, those guys shoot it too. They shoot them daggone threes, that's for sure, and it adds up quick. You got
Mm-hmm.
guys can shoot it like they can,
Yeah,
and they
yeah,
shoot anytime.
yeah, and they pretty much can all shoot.
Yeah, I mean that's the deal. If you can't shoot, you
You ever
better be
been?
a heck of a rebounder, buddy.
Yeah.
If you're gonna play in the league, you better be a heck of a rebounder, a heck of a defender.
You ever been to You've been to an NBA game before, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been several
So
years.
I haven't been to one in a long time, but if you ever go and you get there early enough, and you see those guys working out like an hour and a half, hour before the game, and they're just down there, maybe by themselves before everybody else gets out there, and those guys just like the good shooters. It's just like
They don't
one right after
miss.
the other.
They don't
Like
miss.
they don't miss. They don't miss. And to me, that's what really differentiates them and everybody else. They just don't miss.
No doubt.
And then they're so deep. There's so many guys on that team that do that.
Right.
But the other thing I wanted to talk about was so yesterday, and we had kind of hit on it because a few days ago it was just a rumor that Bill Belichick was looking into the North Carolina football job.
Chapel Bill.
Yesterday he finalized it. What was his deal? Is it 3 years or 5 years?
I don't remember.
5 years and however many $1 million. So it'll be I mean, I'm going to want to watch North Carolina football at least a few games.
No doubt.
And see how he does, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of team he puts together. When you're coaching in college, it's just a different ball game coaching in the pros because you got to recruit. But now, I don't know if you necessarily have to recruit as much. Just say, hey, we've got this much money. You want to come play, and you'll get this much money.
Yeah.
Or however it works. So he went from coaching pros to coaching pros.
Yeah. I was watching, when you're retired, I get to watch Get Up, Greenwell, those guys, Greenberg, what's his name, Colin Cowherd. They've been on it for a couple of days, and they showed Brady and Gronkowski and somebody making fun of Belichick. They're making fun of Belichick. Could you imagine him sitting on the couch in a home visit? If you want to come here, you can come, but if you don't want to, we don't want you. So
yeah.
And they were laughing, Gronkowski and Brady. They looked like two kids cutting up, making fun of their old coach. But it's, I don't know. It's either going to be a complete train wreck or everybody that's a player is going to want to come play for him.
But you know what? The thing about Bill Belichick, when you see him like on TV, when you see him like in documentaries and things like that, he seems like a pretty funny guy. Like
dry sense of humor.
But he seems pretty outgoing and but just what you see with him on the football field with the normal day-to-day football operations is very just all business.
It's just with him. I don't know. I have a hard time. They were talking about Robert Kraft, those guys on those morning shows. They were talking about Robert Kraft, and the rumor was that Belichick didn't get a sniff last year with those open jobs, and the rumor was, and I never heard this till yesterday, that Robert Kraft told all those owners, "You don't want to touch this guy," and that's why and Belichick wants to coach. And, they're talking about, the reason he's taking his job now is because he doesn't want to get out of coaching, because if you're out so long, you kind of lose touch. But he's wanting to show all these NFL owners he can still coach. He's still in the game. He's still evaluating. He's still doing his thing. And he wants to get the all-time wins record. He's not far from that. That's another thing they're throwing out. So he wants to get back. But the one really interesting stat, they had a bunch of stats, was his record and Andy Reid's record without Tom Brady and without Patrick Mahomes. I was just like, wow. I mean, I don't remember the numbers. I can remember seeing it and thinking, wow, you got to be kidding me. Because their records without, Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady were not that good. Now, Andy Reid did get the Super Bowl with the Eagles, but it was just really kind of interesting to hear those guys, the NFL media people, talking about how Robert Kraft had probably, they didn't know this for sure, but those were the rumors that he'd gone around at owners' meetings. But it was interesting. They were talking about this guy. He's a coach. And I think Adam Schechter, he was talking about when they had the meetings that in the hotel where they had all the workout machines, the workout room, said guys were in there lifting weights. He said Belichick's on a treadmill, like making notes.
Yeah.
He said he's walking, but he's writing stuff. He's reading stuff. He's coached 24/7. But I said that if you can find a clip, Gronkowski and Brady making fun of him, that was priceless.
Yeah. So it's just, I don't know, it's one of those things where I'll have to just see it to actually like comprehend it, like him being on the sideline of a college team. And then it was funny because one of the other things was how, is he going to be able to relate to these college kids and these recruits? And then you see these pictures and tweets of him with his 23-year-old girlfriend, and they're like, yeah, he's going to be able to relate to college kids just fine.
Yeah. That was one thing they're talking about today. It's like some of I think it's Devin McCourty was talking about, Belichick had a hard time relating to 27, 28-year-old men. How's he going to relate with 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, they were talking about, as a college coach, you kind of get to know your players. You get to know about their, their family, their friends, their high school years growing. Is a Belichick not interested in that? He could care less. He said, their thing was when you step across those lines, you got a job. I don't care about anything else. If you got a problem, that's on you. But when you step between those lines, you better be ready to get the job done or somebody else will. And I think it goes back to if kids think you can make them better, they're going to want to play for you.
Yeah. And then the other big story this week was the number one recruit in the country is going to BYU.
Yeah, how about that?
Now that kid's from Utah, correct?
I think so.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense.
I mean, I think I'm not sure, but I believe he is.
And then his NIL deal is like north of $5 million.
Yeah, they were talking about that on the UK game last night, weren't they?
I believe so. I don't know. I might not have heard that, but and that's just crazy to me because I don't know how these schools divvy up their NIL funds. Right? If Rob was on, he might be able to tell us more. He probably knows more about it than we do. But you give one, if you're at BYU and one kid is getting $5 million, I would think that would probably drain the pot kind of dry.
I don't know.
But they're going to be on TV as many times as they could put them on TV. And then they're in the Big 12 now, so that also that's going to give them exposure against Kansas and Texas, and those games will be on
Not
TV.
Texas.
Do what?
Not Texas.
Not Texas. Texas is, and I'm still having that. That goes back. I can't keep these conferences and all these moves.
But yeah, you're right.
I think they ought to go. I think, speaking of conferences and realignment, I think they ought to just go back to, instead of having the Southeastern Conference, the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10, because you got two conferences where you have teams flying from coast to coast, kids flying coast to coast to play games.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just Why wouldn't you just divide the country up? You go north to south, and you have an Atlantic Conference. You have I don't know what you want to call it, a Midwest Conference. You have a Plains Mountain Conference, and then you have a West Coast Conference.
No doubt.
You get 17, and then what you could do, you could even take those conferences and you could divide them up into like divisions, and then you have divisional play. I don't know. It just I don't know all the ins and outs and how all the money's changing hands, but it just seems stupid to me that you've got two conferences where it literally spans coast to coast.
Yeah, I mean,
you got the Southeastern Conference that's still fairly regional.
Yeah, I mean, what Cal and Stanford play in the ACC. I mean, they fly to Miami. UCLA goes to Rutgers.
They're literally on the coast of the Pacific Ocean, but they're in the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Yeah. You think I can remember a few years ago they just talked about taking the Power 5 schools and just making them Division 1. And then everybody else goes to Division 2 goes down, Division 3 goes down, but you keep Division 1, Division 2, Division 3 NAIA, but the Power 5 they make their own separate league and do their own thing.
That would make too much sense, probably.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that wasn't my idea. I just remember folks talking about it. Instead of having Division 1, 2, and 3, have Power 5 division and then Division 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. And then because you still have what are the other conferences that you get? The Big East,
Mountain West,
the American,
the
one that
AAC,
AAC,
American Athletic Conference. Is that right?
Yeah, those are pretty much the three bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get down to Missouri Valley, a little bit below that, I guess.
Mid American and Missouri Valley, they're pretty on the same.
Yeah, the MAC and the Missouri Valley about the same. But I did want to also talk a little bit about. Have you kept up with much high school basketball to start the season in Kentucky?
I've just looked at a few scores.
Yeah, I've looked at some scores also. It's still a little bit early for me.
Honestly, really, one of the ones I've looked at are the guys that played for us.
Yeah,
I look at Boone County, Holmes, Beechwood, Cooper, Holy Cross.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to try to get out if I can. I try to get out and go to some of these holiday tournaments and see some of the local teams play. But yeah, I usually don't really start paying attention till about the middle of January when they've racked up 10, 12 games, and then I can compare them to the rest of their region and see who their common opponents are and all that kind of stuff. But
the Comets and the Lakers. My guy Bruce Lane. I got to keep up the Lane Lakers.
Bruce,
his boy got that rebound, didn't he? The day they played. Yeah, his boy got the rebound, threw it out to the kid for the three.
Yeah, Stephen. And then you've got, of course, Tillman, Cracken County down in that first region, Marshall County, Graves County.
Callaway just beat Graves by 6, didn't they?
Callaway beat Graves. Callaway's they probably have as good a team as they've had since the 2015 team that went to the state quarterfinals. Probably the most talented team.
But they barely beat Graves, didn't they?
They did beat Graves.
It was only by 6, though. I was kind of surprised, but
yeah.
Have
you heard anything about when are they opening up the high school in Christian County?
From what I understand, next year. I don't know.
Yeah.
Christian and Hoptown, neither one of them are very good right now.
No, they're not.
When that idea was first floated around, people were thinking, that's going to be a plum job in basketball. That's going to be one of the best in the state. But boy, right now, they don't. Neither one of them are very good.
Yeah, I mean, but you figure in those type of schools, the down cycles don't last a long time.
No
You
doubt.
know, they'll be back up. But you can only put 5 guys on the floor at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So the team that we played in the '09 state tournament, the first round game, Christian County, that might have been one of the fastest teams I've ever seen.
They were quick.
Yeah.
They were definitely quick.
And I think to prepare for that game, we were over in the Joe Kraft Center practicing. I think we took 7 JV kids and put them on the court to get us ready.
Yeah.
Against them.
I think we still had 2 10-second calls.
Yeah, they were
good. Team. I mean, that was a good team.
2 years later they won it.
Right.
They had
Hickey.
The Hickey kid that went to LSU. He was baller, but we beat them. We beat that team twice. We beat them the next year.
Yeah,
beat them down in Montgomery County.
J-Dell had a tip in at the buzzer to go to overtime.
J-Dell, he did.
I think Hickey had 35, and maybe Elijah had 31 or something.
I remember the Hickey kid. He got the rebound one time, and he was close to our bench and was walking it up, and he says something to one of us. He's like, "Look," he said, "Look what I'm getting ready to do," and he went down and pulled up and hit a 3 or something.
I don't remember that.
He could.
He was good.
He could really play, man. Yeah. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that region. Of course, you still got University Heights in that region, still pretty much doing what they've always done. They'll recruit and get kids. Which, by the way, when I was at Warren East High School, we did a home and home. For some reason, did a home and home with them. I don't know why. But
who's the coach? Tommy Compton?
No, it was the guy that came after him. And so Tommy might have scheduled it that way as he was going out. But I remember we drove there on Saturday night. We drove from Bowling Green to Hopkinsville, and I had never been to UHA before. And I'm like, man, it looked like a church gym, but it's got a big state tournament championship banner hanging up in there.
92, I believe.
Yeah, 92. But they kicked our tail. They came out in the second half. We had kind of hung with them, but that second half they just destroyed us. Made it a long bus trip home. But the last thing I wanted to get to was we had brought it up because it just happened, but I had just kind of unpacked it and looked at it. But do you see that story about that guy riding that mule down in Murray?
I saw the video of the cops chasing him.
Yeah,
sirens are blaring.
Yeah, he was.
All the construction workers got up and they all had their phones. Did you see them?
Yeah, he had that mule just galloping.
Yeah.
And then, so apparently he had. I think he had gotten arrested initially, like a couple of nights before, and then what we saw on the video was after he had went down to the impound and got the mule out and started riding it again. So
straight Callaway County, brother.
I got a buddy. That's do what?
Was he from Elmo, Dexter, or where's he from?
Who knows? I don't know. I can probably find out. I got a buddy that's a retired police officer down there, and I texted him and I said, Scott, I said, can you get a DUI on a horse? He said, you can. So, I mean, I guess if you're under the influence and you're on any kind of, I don't know, you could be a danger to someone. So, but yeah, that was crazy. He got arrested. He was bound and determined ride that mule as much as he could around Murray, and so I don't know. We'll see what happens going forward. But Dave, I'm going to let you go.
All right,
We had a good session here, and we'll jump on again. So stay
All right,
tuned,
man.
guys. If you don't mind, I got the Facebook page up and running. I'll put these on the Facebook page. Give it a listen, give it a like, give it a follow. Comment, all those type of things to engage. We sure would appreciate it. This is something that I think we're gonna keep doing, and we're gonna try to be entertaining as much as we can. So I think we bring something that's a little bit different. So we're going to keep this thing rolling, keep getting better. And Dave, I appreciate you being
All right,
on.
Coach Stubb.
Yep, we'll do it again.
See you, bud.
See you, man.
All right, bye.